Hi everyone! In this video we will solve higher order equations with factoring by grouping. Solve x to the third minus 7x squared minus 25x plus 175 equals 0. When we have more than 3 terms or a trinomial, the only way we can factor it is by grouping. So that's our key to knowing that the way we factor this particular problem is that I have 4 terms. And so what we do is we group the first 2 and the second 2, and I include the sign of that middle one inside the grouping because it helps me to see if I'm going to take out a positive or a negative. On the first 2, I look for the greatest common factor. In this case, it's x squared. So I'm going to take out x squared. This is dividing both terms by x squared when we say factor it out. So the first term, x cubed, and I'm factoring out or dividing out x squared, leaves me with just x. And then negative 7 or minus 7 divided by, or x squared divided by x squared, the x squareds will cancel, and so I'm left with minus 7. Now we look at the second 2 terms, and I have minus 25x plus 175. The greatest common factor here is 25. However, because I have this negative sign, I'm going to factor out a negative 25 from both terms. The first term is like dividing by negative 25, and a negative 25 divided by negative 25 is 1, and 1 times x is just x. Or you can say that it cancels, and you're just left with the x. Positive 175 divided by negative 25, because that's what we're doing, leaves us with a negative 7. And this still equals 0. And because we're factoring by grouping, we now have 2 very much larger terms of which we're going to look for a greatest common factor. And because we can kind of see it with it all written out, our greatest common factor is the binomial x minus 7 because it is in common with both of these terms. This means that I'm going to factor out x minus 7, and I'm going to go ahead and divide this by x minus 7 so that we can see what happens here on both of these terms. I like to say that it factors out and I just cross it out, but it's really we're dividing both of these terms by this, and that factors it out to the front of our parentheses, or the opposite of the distributive, leaving us with just x squared for the first term minus 25 for the second term. So this is x squared minus 25, and the whole equation still equals 0. Now we can use the zero product property, which states when we have 2 things multiplied together, which we do, and it equals 0, that one or both of them must equal 0. So we will take both of these and set them equal to 0. X minus 7 equals 0, and x squared minus 25 equals 0. On the left side, we'll add 7 to both sides, and we isolate the variable, so we get x equals positive 7. And on the right side, we'll add 25 to both sides to isolate the variable, and we're left with x squared equals positive 25. We're not quite done on the right-hand side because we have x squared, and we need it to just be the variable x. So to undo or negate that square, we're going to take a square root. But what I do to the left side, I must also do to the right side. So I'll square root 25. And whenever we square root a number, we get the positive and or the negative of that number. Because positive 25, which is a perfect square, evaluates to be 5, and positive 5 times positive 5 does equal positive 25, but negative 5 times negative 5 also equals positive 25. So we have the answers of negative 5 and positive 5 that equal our x. And this is x because the square root negates the squared, so we're just left with x. So we have 3 answers here, and if we go from low to high, so we'll list them all out together. Starting with the lowest, it's negative 5, then continuing as positive 5, and the largest is positive 7. So we have our 3 answers right here, and now we're all done.